Fun fact, planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Mankind, about 140,000 years old. Let me put that in perspective. If you condense the Earth's lifespan into 24 hours, that's one full day, then we have been here on this planet for, drum roll please, 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And look what we've done. We have modestly named ourselves Homo sapiens, meaning wise man. But is man really so wise? Smart, yes, and it's good to be smart, but not too smart for your own good. Yes, we have split the atom. Yes, we build clever machines that navigate the universe in search of new homes, but at the same time, those atoms we split created nuclear warfare. In our quest to explore the galaxy, rejects and neglects the home that we have here now, so no, that cannot be wisdom. Wisdom is different. While intelligence speaks, wisdom listens, and we willingly covered our ears to Mother Nature's screams and closed our eyes to all of her help-wanted signs. Wisdom knows that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, so if we were wise, we would not be shocked when we see storms that are stronger than ever before, or more drought, hurricanes, and wildfire than ever before, because there's more pollution than ever before, more carbon, more trees cut down than ever before. At a record pace, we have increased the extinction of animals by 1,000 times the normal rate. What a feat. In the next 10 to 100 years, every beloved animal character in every children's book is predicted to go extinct. Lions gone, rhinos gone, tiger, gorilla, elephant, polar bear gone. In 3 seconds. Species that have been here longer than us will be gone because of us. In this 3 seconds. In an existence shorter than a Vine video, we turn the circle of life into our own personal conveyor belt. Somebody, anybody help. We were given so much, the only planet in this solar system with life. I mean, we are 1 in a million. No, actually, scientifically, we are 1 in a billion, trillion. That's a 1 followed by 33 zeros. And I don't want to get too spiritual, but how are we not a miracle? We are perfectly positioned to the sun so we don't burn, but not too distant so we don't turn to ice. Goldilocks said it best, we are just right. This paradise where we are given medicine from trees, not coincidentally, but because like the song says, we are family. Literally, everything, every species is connected genetically, from the sunflower to the sunfish. And this is what we must recognize before it's too late, because the real crisis is not global warming, environmental destruction, or animal agriculture. It is us. These problems are symptoms of us, byproducts of us. Our inner reflection, loss of connection has created this misdirection. We have forgotten that everything contributes to the perfection of Mother Nature. Corporations keep us unaware and disconnected, but they have underestimated our strength. Contrary to popular belief, millions are waking up out of their sleep, seeing our home being taken right up under our feet. We cannot allow our history to be written by the wicked, greedy, and loony. It is our duty to protect Mother Nature from those who refuse to see her beauty. Call me crazy, but I believe we should have the right to eat food that's safe, with ingredients we can pronounce. Drink water that is clean, marvel at trees, breathe air free of toxins. These are natural rights, not things that can be bargained for in Congress. See, they want you to feel powerless, but it has been said that something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can cause a typhoon halfway around the world. But when enough people come together, we too will make waves and wash the world into a new era filled with love and connection, freedom for all without oppression. But it is up to you, yes, you watching this behind this screen, to make the effort, because time is of the essence, and only together can we make it to the 4th second.
Hi everyone. My name is Brandon Lashinsky, and I'm a graduate student here at MIT. Now, the presentation that you're watching was created by an organization here at MIT called EarthDNA, but it's going to be shared with high school students all around the country. And so I'm really excited to be sharing it with you guys. Welcome. This talk is going to have some audience interaction. So to get everybody warmed up, please just yell out your own name on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hello. Nice to meet you. Like I said, I'm Brandon. Now in this talk, we're going to cover 4 things: the truth, the consequences, the myths, and the future. And I want to start with the truth. In particular, let's review the science of what's happening. We'll go through it slowly. In 1896, a scientist discovered the greenhouse effect. Can somebody here tell me what the greenhouse effect is? Does anybody here know? Yes?
It's the part of the atmosphere where sun's rays go inside it, and then it's difficult for them to get outside of it, so it keeps the Earth's atmosphere at a normal temperature.
Cool. It's part of the Earth's atmosphere that keeps our temperature warm and normal. Okay, anybody else? What is the greenhouse effect? Yes, go ahead.
So there are certain gases that trap heat
Okay.
and release that heat after it's trapped. It's something called radiative forcing. And so for a lot of gases in the atmosphere, like nitrogen, the sun rays just pass right through. But for a select few, like water and carbon dioxide, they absorb infrared light and then for red spectrum, and then that traps heat in the atmosphere.
Fantastic. You must know your climate science. But that's exactly right. And the basic idea is that some gases in our atmosphere trap heat. You can see here how light from the sun hits the Earth, it gets converted into heat, and it gets trapped underneath this atmospheric blanket. We emit these greenhouse gases by burning fossil fuels for transportation and electricity. Things like driving, flying, air conditioning. These all emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. As we burn fossil fuels like oil, gas, and coal, greenhouse gas concentrations rise. You can see here that since 2005, the amount of carbon dioxide, one of the main greenhouse gases, has increased steadily. Here's that same graph since 1700. You can see the Industrial Revolution happening in 1760, and shortly thereafter, we start to see this increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Here's the last 800,000 years. Now notice, in the last 800,000 years, the maximum carbon dioxide level has been 300 parts per million. 300,000 years ago is the oldest Homo sapiens fossil. That's us. The Industrial Revolution happened in 1760, a little under 300 years ago, and here's where we are now. Atmospheric greenhouse gases have spiked. As humans emit more greenhouse gases, our atmosphere traps more heat and the Earth gets warmer. You can see here the global temperature anomaly from NASA over time. It starts with lots of blues and reds, meaning things are pretty normal. But as time goes on from 1950 to today, it gets redder and redder and redder. That's Earth warming to 0.82 degrees Celsius above normal, or 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who cares about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit? That's like nothing, and I can barely even feel it. Well, to answer this question, we have to talk about the consequences. Climate change already affects us. Whether it's through wildfires in California, or flooding in the Midwest, or hurricanes on the East Coast, the effects of climate change are already here. Heat waves, floods, and other disasters are becoming more frequent. You can see the recorded natural disasters per year has skyrocketed since the 1960s. In Boston, the city is already planning seawalls because of more intense and frequent flooding. We are already doing these things. In other words, cities must spend your parents' tax money on climate adaptations instead of schools, transit, and hospitals. Unusual weather also affects food. By 2030, a drought could double the price of corn. And maybe you don't like corn, but I bet you like chicken or fish, which are both raised on corn feed, or maybe you like high fructose corn syrup in cereal or bread. The point is, corn is in a lot of foods. And by stifling crop growth, climate change limits food access. Of course, it's not just corn either. But at any rate, climate change also affects water. This woman migrated over 150 miles because of a drought. By 2050, the UN projects 200 million environmental migrants. These are people who leave their homes because of changes in the environment. And my question to you is this. In recent migrant crises, thousands of refugees created turmoil in Europe and America. What happens when millions of people move north in search of food, water, and safety? Can we handle that? I'm not sure. Even the US military refers to climate change as a threat multiplier because it makes every bad situation worse. And by the way, the Pentagon has released reports about climate change under both Democratic and Republican administrations. This is not a partisan issue. These problems are not just in the future either. They're happening right now. The current species extinction rate is 1,000 times higher than normal. If pollinators go, so do we. There's no more crops left. We're on track for 1 million species extinctions. And here's what just one of those looks like.
That's right. That's good. We met the last 3 northern white rhinos in existence. They have 3 armed guards that follow them around and make sure the poachers don't kill them. So they have to have 24-hour security.
Yes.
Do you think people would come in here to try to take their horn?
Yeah, as we know that poaching is still a serious challenge. Poacher is very tricky. It might be able to manage to come in from anywhere. So we need to be protecting all the time.
There are many factors that are causing the eradication of certain animals, but all of that gets exacerbated by climate change. He doesn't know that he's the last of his kind, but we do. And that's why I think the onus lies on us.
What goes around comes around. As we disrupt and destroy the world, the consequences are very real.
I want the world to know that climate change is happening. It's here. And for us to be able to do something about it, we must take responsibility.
It's not enough to sort of like feel bad about it or feel like, oh, I feel really emotional about that, or I feel really like sad that that animal is going to become extinct. I think what we have to do is ask for innovation around carbon emissions. We have to demand it, what we do in terms of our carbon emissions. That affects our future and the future of the animals that roam these plains.
We could live more sustainably. So why don't we? To really understand this, we have to talk about the myths. And I want to set the stage with a game called Commons. So at this point, I want everybody to form groups of 5 and count off from 1 to 5. Go ahead and sit in a circle. You guys can stand up, form groups. I'll give you a second to make this happen. It might be easier for people in the front row to kind of move to turn your chairs to face the back, because we're going to be sitting in a circle. Cool. Okay. And everybody count off from 1 to 5 within your groups.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 5.
Okay. Has everybody counted off? We good to go? Okay. So you're going to all start a pond with 20 fish. This is your pond's carrying capacity. Your goal. At the end of the game, the winner is the person in the room with the most fish. And remember, you win as an individual, not as a group. Here's how the game actually works. Each round, every person in your group will take between 1 and 4 fish. You have to take at least 1, but you can't take more than 4. After each round, your pond will be restocked by doubling the number of fish without exceeding 20. So 4 fish becomes 8, 9 fish becomes 18, 10 fish or more brings the pond back to 20. Does that make sense? For the group of 4 in the back, your carrying capacity is actually going to be 4 times the number of people in your group. So you're going to have 16. And so all the same rules apply, where if you double the number of fish at 8 or higher, you'll go back to 16. You will never have a pond with 20 fish in it. Does that make sense to the group of 4? Great. Don't eat the goldfish yet. And if you have allergies, don't eat the goldfish at all. So if everybody could send person number 1 up to the front, I can hand you guys goldfish.
Thank you.
Great. So everybody should have a pond and a restock supply. And can everybody just make sure that you have the right number of fish in your pond? So it's 4 times the number of people in your group. Everybody just make sure. Okay. Everybody good? Okay. You guys have 30 seconds to discuss strategy starting now.
If we all take turns, then we'll all be able to place this. But then none of us would.
But if we each take four at the beginning. So we start by each taking 3 and or if we each take
individual.
2, then we can bring ourselves back up.
I can take 4.
So the other people
You guys all take 1.
So if we just each take 2, then we can.
All right, let's see.
Round 1. Take turns going clockwise, starting with player 3. You have 60 seconds.
Let's say 2 is the first 3. On the 4th round. You can balance it out.
Go ahead and restock your pawns. You have 30 seconds to do this each time. You'll play 4 rounds. Yeah. Everybody good? Gonna go ahead and skip. Round 2, starting with player 2.
This fun is going down, I'm gonna win.
Restock. You have 30 seconds.
Adding 11 this time.
No, you're gonna get to double. So
Oh shit. Okay, so we're gonna have 9.
Round 3, take turns, starting with player 4.
Pace yourself.
Two.
I've accepted that.
Oh, what a guy. I'm still gonna take 2.
Oh no.
The first player
Does anybody need more time? I'm going to go ahead and skip again. Go ahead and restock.
So now we're too short from getting our 4 fish.
Everybody good? Cool. Final round. Start with player 3.
Real dick. Real dick.
What are you doing?
It's the last round. Take 4. Everybody should get 4 because you only took 2. Wait, did you take 2?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take 2.
Oh no,
Very fair.
now you're only gonna get. I'm gonna take 1.
Is everybody set? Anybody need more time? Cool. Let's do one last round just for fun. So, who still has fish in their pond? Cool, okay, so we're actually doing this. Sometimes we don't. Go ahead and restock your ponds. You guys have 30 seconds. Are you guys all set to you guys are restocked? Cool. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and skip ahead. Final round for real this time. Take turns going clockwise, starting with player number 1. All right. Is everybody good? Cool. All right. So who won? Raise your hand if you have more than 10 fish. All right, sorry, go ahead and count your fish first. And then raise your hand if you have more than 10. Cool? Yeah. Okay. Only 2 people have more than 10. 3 people. Okay. More than 11 fish? Okay. So you guys each have 12 or more. Do you have 13 or more fish? 14 or more fish? 15 or more fish? How many? How many do you have? 15. Congratulations to the winner. Great. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So talk to me. Why was Commons hard? What was hard about this game? You guys can go ahead and yell it out or raise your hands as you wish.
You have to have a strategy that everyone agrees upon.
You have to have a strategy that everyone agrees upon. Okay. Anybody else? What was hard about this game? Go ahead.
The thing that was best for the commons was the most damaging personally.
The thing that was best for the Commons was the most damaging personally. Anybody else? Yes.
How long we had to kind of keep it going, so it was unstable.
Cool. So you weren't quite sure how long we were going to keep going. Great. These are all good answers. And really, the core of this is, if everyone acts in their own interest, the pond, the commons, dies. This is called the tragedy of the commons. When anyone can access a limited resource, it runs out. Roads are another really good example. Anybody with a car can access a road. And soon enough, everybody is thinking, if these idiots would just take the bus, I could be home by now. Can somebody, or can anybody else name some other real-life examples of commons? Think about limited resources that anyone can access. Yes, go ahead.
Air.
Air. Say more. Can you say more about?
Air pollution. And
Great.
again, how we're, just like you were talking about earlier, how we're abusing it and overusing it with all these resources that we think we need or want.
Yes, so anybody can access the air, and therefore anybody can pollute it. Great. Anybody else?
Wireless internet.
Okay, wireless internet. Say more.
So if everybody watches Netflix in high HD at the same time, nobody can watch Netflix in
So if everybody watches Netflix in HD, then nobody gets to watch Netflix in HD because you don't have enough bandwidth. Great. Any others? Let's do one last one. Any takers? Yes, go ahead.
Office mugs.
Office mugs. Tell me more about office mugs.
If you have reusable mugs in your office, you have to rely on people cleaning them and putting them back for everyone else to be able to use them.
Great. So office mugs are something that anybody in the office can access, but nobody's incentivized to actually take care of them. Great. What about this one? Earth is a commons. We can all access Earth. We're all on it. And certainly it's limited. So how do we solve commons problems either in the game or in real life? Does anybody have any ideas? How did you guys solve it in the game? Let's start there.
Strategize together.
Strategize together. Cool. Can you be more specific?
We talked about how we would be able to keep the most fish on our plate or in our
Cool.
pond by each just taking 2.
So you guys all ended up each taking 2.
Not the entire time.
Not the entire time. Okay. Anybody else? So why? How do we solve commons problems either in the game or in real life? What do you guys think? Yes, go ahead.
If some people took more, others would take less.
So if some people took more, others would take less. Great. How did that work?
Not well.
Not well. Okay. So it didn't work very well. Well, the answer is, and when we kind of came upon it already, collective action. We have to set rules in order to solve commons problems. One example was, let's all take 2. But we saw in your case that sometimes those rules get broken. That's why climate change is really hard. But at any rate, setting rules for everyone is called politics. Setting rules for everyone is called politics. And therefore, protecting the most important commons and inhabitable Earth is political. We need rules. But there's an issue. Rules cost money. For example, if I can't sell my products because I emit carbon to make them, I lose money. And that's not acceptable to me. So now we can answer the question, why haven't we done anything? And the answer is, no one wants rules limiting carbon. But especially not fossil fuel groups who emit more than anyone. You can see here carbon dioxide emissions by sector. Residential and commercial, industry, transportation, agriculture, and land use. Anybody want to guess what that big blue one is? Fossil fuels. Energy. Oil, gas, and coal. Yeah. The fossil fuel industry has actually known about climate change for decades. In 1978, more than 40 years ago, Exxon's senior scientist had this to say. Present thinking holds that man has a time window of 5 to 10 years before the need for hard decisions regarding changes in energy strategies might become critical. In other words, we have 5 to 10 years to figure out how to get energy a different way. He said that 40 years ago. But fossil fuel companies spread climate myths to the public, including schools. From 2003 to 2010, Koch family foundations and other fossil fuel groups gave $558 million to climate denial organizations. And I wish that I could share more financial data with you, but these groups are secretive and hard to study. In any case, the point is this. Fossil fuel companies know that rules will hurt their profits, so they spread myths to the public about climate change. But now you know the truth. You know that climate change is real. It's happening because of us. It already affects you. It will only get worse. And we haven't done anything because fossil fuel companies have lied to us for decades. That leaves us with one final question. How do we shape our future?
This is not a drill. My name is Greta Thunberg. We are living in the beginning of a mass extinction. Our climate is breaking down. Children like me are giving up their education to protest. But we can still fix this. You can still fix this. To survive, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. But this alone will not be enough. Lots of solutions are talked about. But what about a solution that is right in front of us? I'll let my friend George explain.
There is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called a tree. A tree is an example of a natural climate solution. Mangroves, peat bogs, jungles, marshes, seabeds, kelp forests, swamps, coral reefs, they take carbon out of the air and lock it away. Nature is a tool we can use to repair our broken climate. These natural climate solutions could make a massive difference.
Pretty cool, right?
But only if we also leave fossil fuels in the ground.
Here's the crazy part. Right now, we are ignoring them. We spend 1,000 times more on global fossil fuel subsidies than on natural-based solutions.
natural climate solutions get just 2% of all the money used on tackling climate breakdown.
This is your money. It is your taxes and your savings.
Even more crazy, right now when we need nature the most, we're destroying it faster than ever.
Up to 200 species are going extinct every single day.
Much of the Arctic ice is gone. Most of our wild animals have gone. Much of our soil has gone.
So what should we do?
What should you do?
It's simple. We need to protect, restore, and fund. Protect. Tropical forests are being cut down at the rate of 30 football pitches a minute.
Where nature is doing something vital, we must protect it.
Restore. Much of our planet has been damaged.
But nature can regenerate, and we can help ecosystems bounce back.
Fund.
We need to stop funding things that destroy nature and pay for things that help it.
It is that simple. Protect, restore, fund.
This can happen everywhere. Many people have already begun using natural climate solutions. We need to do it on a massive scale.
You can be part of this.
Vote for people who defend nature.
Share this video. Talk about this.
All around the world, there are amazing movements fighting for nature. Join them.
Everything counts. What you do counts.
We need to talk. And I know that words may seem inconsequential, given some of the other information I've shared, but words give life to ideas, and ideas lead to change. In other words, your words matter. I know it may feel awkward, but studies show that teens are actually great at making parents care about climate change. Be open, be gentle, be honest. You can try starting with, how do you feel about climate change? In fact, on the count of 3, I want everybody to practice. So on the count of 3, let's all say, how do you feel about climate change? Ready? 1, 2, 3. How do you feel about climate change? It's easy and it works. I want to share one last perspective on why we need to talk.
Okay, looking good. Coming out. Thanks, you're doing good.
My second spacewalk, things were going well, and I had a couple moments. I took a look at the planet, and
this is incredible.
I started to become a bit emotional. And just the sheer beauty of it, I started to cry, and I could feel the tears welling up. And what I thought was, this must be the view from heaven. If you could be in heaven, you look down on our planet, this is how we must look from heaven. And then I thought to myself, no, it's not right. It's more beautiful than that. This is what heaven must look like. And I felt like I was looking into a paradise.
It's not too late to keep our paradise. But we can't do it without you. I'm going to leave you guys with a 5-day challenge. So go ahead and write down the names of 5 people you can talk to about climate change. You can do it on your phones, you can do it on a piece of paper, but go ahead and write down 5 names of people you can talk to about climate change. Each day for the next 5 days, talk about climate change with someone on your list. And remember, time is of the essence. Thank you. Questions?
I noticed the video presentation included afforestation and reforestation as really large solutions to this problem. Are there others that we can consider?
A lot of the solutions are collective based. And by the way, I'll be sending out a handout to all of you guys for things you can do and informational resources that you can use for after this talk. But to answer your question, the main thing that you can do in your life is actually stop eating beef. Cattle have a huge impact on greenhouse gases because of the methane they produce. And so if you stop eating beef, that's actually the single biggest contribution you can make within your personal life. Obviously, if you are able to drive less, fly less, that's another huge one. These are all ways that you can contribute. But as we saw, part of the reason that climate change is such a tricky problem is because we need everybody to come together. We need wind farms, we need afforestation, as you mentioned. We need other kinds of renewable energy resources. But in your personal life, don't eat beef, talk about climate change, and fly less are the top three. Yes, go ahead.
We talk a lot about fossil fuels in transportation and flying and things like that, and same with beef, we hear a lot about that. And now people are starting to hear more about plastics, which is a use of fossil fuels, but there's a lot of fossil fuel uses that are huge, like in manufacturing processes and things where we could buy from companies who use less fossil fuels, but it's really hard for us to find information about that. Is there some sort of resource for that?
I haven't seen any, but I can follow up with you. So I can send you something after, along with the handouts. I'll have an answer to that. I'll do the best that I can. Thanks. Yeah.
In talking with our parents, would you recommend a strategy where you use the spiritual-ish argument that like God's given us this world to protect and it's a paradise and we must protect nature, or the self-interest argument? Like, how do you think we should lead that conversation?
That's a great question. So the question is, how should we talk to our parents about climate change? You know your parents better than I do. And that's part of why it turns out that teenagers and kids are actually so good at this. Messenger matters much more than message when it comes to climate change. And so if you come to your parents and say this is important to you, I think that's enough to start a conversation. Don't attack people, including your parents. That tends not to be super helpful. To quote one of the professors here at MIT, research shows that showing research to people doesn't work. And so if you can talk to your parents from a personal perspective and what it means to you, that I think is the best way to start these conversations. Stories and personal impacts work a lot better than graphs and data. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Anybody else? Awesome. Oh, yes. One more.
So what if you come up against someone who insists that it's not real? How should I talk to somebody who says, well, I've been brainwashed?
That's a really hard question. The question is, how do we talk to people who are truly convinced that climate change is not real? If it's a stranger, honestly, you're probably not going to have much of a shot at convincing them. As I said, messenger matters more than message. And you don't really have the credibility with that person to sway their opinion on something that they hold so dearly. But again, if it's a relative, start the conversation with what climate change means for you. And as I said, I'll send out resources from NASA and from NOAA and from a bunch of other very credible institutions that you can look at to see more information and why our models work and how we know all of the things that we know about climate change. And of course, you're more than welcome, in fact, encouraged to share that with your relatives and friends and so on. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Thank you. Do we have, no. Yes, in the back.
So it was a really well done presentation, and I appreciated it. My question is really more form than anything. Whenever you ask the question about greenhouse gas effect, is there like a number in your head that you have before, like you'll ask a certain number of people before you just move on for the sake of time?
Cool. I want to hold logistical questions for afterwards, but does anybody have any questions within the scope of the presentation? Anybody else? Okay.
I guess I'll just say my 2 cents on Frank's question, which is like coming from a very conservative area of the country and a very conservative family, that like not being confrontational and just saying like this is how I feel about climate change and like what's going on has actually proven to have an effect over years. Yes, it's been a slow process, but like saying like the data you're getting, like where you're getting this information from is biased. And if you look elsewhere, you'll see different data, and then I just leave it. And over time, they've started to see that and like have started to change their minds about it. So that would be my 2 cents from personal experience.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So don't expect for a single conversation to completely change somebody's mind. That's really hard and unlikely. But over the course of these conversations, I think you'll be surprised and pleased at how successful you'll be at changing the minds of people that are close to you. Cool. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And we can answer some logistical questions, but we don't need to record that.